You're listening to the Waypoint TV Podcast Network, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors.
What's your favorite hunting tradition? Is it going out on the family land? Maybe the woods where you used to build forts when you were a kid, you know? You just get outdoors, and do you go out with your buddies? Maybe that first time hunting with your grandfather. I mean, those are the memories that last a lifetime. Well, hunting season is finally here, and Academy Sports and Outdoor Stores has everything to gear up for the field for less. And when you go to Academy, you get to shop a wide selection of ammo, shotguns, rifles, feeders, game cameras, camo, deer corn, and more from the brands that you trust. I mean, to me, nothing sounds better than all that. I got you guys a good deal. If you text HUNT24 to 22369, you can take $20 off when you spend $100 when you shop hunting supplies at academy.com. Maybe you need a hunting license. Pick it up while you're at the store shopping. Or better yet, get started now at academy.com.
Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, well, we're going to talk about civil asset forfeiture. It's funny because with the election coming up, you know, obviously it just happened and whatever. But I was like, oh, well, you know, when Kamala Harris wins, the government's going to be like, well, we need more money to give everybody $25,000 and to do all these things. And I started thinking about, you know, the ways that government gets more money. And one of the things that's really big is civil asset forfeiture. Now, obviously, the election didn't go that way, but this is still going on, whether we have Democrats or Republicans. So we can kind of, you know, see what happens here. It really is crazy. People don't realize that the government can just come up and take your shit. Like, and it doesn't even have to be a lot. Like, it could be like, oh, you have $500 in cash. People don't carry that much money. That's unreasonable. And I'm like, are you crazy? So there are two things. There's criminal asset forfeiture and there's civil asset forfeiture. Now, criminal asset forfeiture, that kind of you could make a case for, right? Like that's like, oh, you know, you're drug running and you're in the speedboat and the speedboat is filled with cocaine all in the hull. And they're like, yeah, we're just going to keep this boat. You're going to prison because we found all this cocaine. You were in the boat. We convicted you, a jury of your peers. That's one thing that I could see. Now,
yeah. Another way they use that a lot, though, is when they can't convict somebody. In other words, like
that's when it's civil. Yeah, that's when it's civil asset forfeiture.
Okay.
And the criminal is when they're convicted and whatever. Now, again, that's, as you're going to see in this episode, it's a slippery slope. And you see how it can go very bad, where I kind of feel like, maybe you shouldn't have this at all because you just are fucked up. It was a big thing. And then the argument is, well, we use it to stop the cartels and the Russian oligarchs, you know, the oligarchs. I don't know who these oligarchs are, but there's a lot of them out there and they're doing bad things and somehow we can't convict them. So we're just stealing their shit. That's the argument, right? Like it's a way to punish. The stuff is here, but they're in Russia. Right. So this is a way we can punish them. But instead we're just like taking Marines money and, you know, like normal happy people going to see their kids on vacation and, hey, we're going to Disney World. We have $2,000 and we're going to just take your money because, you know, fuck you. One of the big ones, like all the stories I kept seeing are like in Nevada. And that seemed to be the recurring theme. Pretty much. And it's weird because you would expect people would have large amounts of cash in Nevada. Like that would be the state where like, hey, I'm going to Vegas. I saved up $5,000. I'm going to go there with it and have a good time. And then, hey, maybe there's a slim chance I even won money and I'm coming back with more money.
Right.
Oh, nope, I don't think so. It's nefarious. I'm going to take it from you. And so, yeah. So when the policeman says, do you have large amounts of cash in the car? Be like, no. And then when they find it and they're like, what's this $5,000? And you just be like, hey, you said large amounts of cash. See what I did there?
Yeah.
And be like, just because you got C's in high school doesn't mean that,
doesn't mean I'm broke.
$5,000 is a lot to you. It might not be to me.
The messed up thing is, though, that a lot of these people that have their money seized in these situations, it's all their money. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's because they took it out of the bank to use it for something.
Yes.
And that's it. It's how are you going to hire a lawyer when they took the only $8,000 you had?
Right. Well, so there's civil and whatever. Now, the thing is with civil asset forfeiture, and this is why this is a dangerous road. We're going to get into some cases and kind of discuss it here. But the thing is, the burden of proof is on you to where the money came from and that you intended to have it for like legal purposes. It could even be that you earned it, but then you were like, yeah, but I was going to go buy drugs with it. So,
right.
But I didn't go buy drugs. I just had it in my car and you just came up with this shit. Bullshit. But anyway, so that's the thing is, and so it's funny because they actually have criminal cases that are stupid that are like US versus $8,850. And that's what it's called. So it's the money has to prove it's innocent, not you. And like, it'll be, there's some guy as a show on HBO. I was watching his thing about this and he mentioned some, and it was like US versus 10 crates of shark fins. And you're like, well, are the shark fins innocent? Are they, it's hard to say. But it makes it hard to prove when it's just stupid, right? I don't know. Stupid is like, do you know where every dollar you made came from? Like it came from the bank at some point, but I don't, I took it out over time. I bought some, whatever with it. And now I just went and sold my tractor and now I have $5,000, like whatever. It's like, I paid to get a roof done. That was a lot of money. I had to go get it at the bank and take out a lot of money, and I was going to go give it to the roofer. And you're saying, well, Chuck, in an instance like that, the government, you would have proof. You would be like, look, I just take it out of the bank, and here's my bill for the roof. That's the same amount, obviously, going to buy drugs. So you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. No, they'll still take that shit. They don't even care. Let me give you an example. You're like, Chuck, there can't be an example. There is. There's a guy, George Reeby, all right? He got stopped at a traffic stop. He had $20,000 in cash in the traffic stop. Now, the guy had just taken it out of the bank and, work for it here. He had a winning bid that he showed the policeman on his phone for a car for $20,000. And it's like, hey, I'm going to buy this car. Look, here's the thing. And they're like, no, we think you're going to buy drugs with it. And he's like, but no, look, it's right here. Like, look at it. And then, so they're interviewing the cop after, because there was like a local news story that I'm watching, and they're interviewing the cop and they're like, but how come you didn't put in your report that he showed you that he had just bought a car on eBay for $20,000? And the cop's just like, well, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't do that.
Yeah, and that's good enough. That's a good enough answer.
They're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. The guy didn't get his money back. Like, fuck you, no. Philadelphia. Listen how crazy this is. In Philadelphia, they have taken over 1,000 houses and 3,000 vehicles with civil asset forfeiture. Now, they're drug houses, right? You're like, oh, so A family has a house. Their 22-year-old son got caught with $40 of heroin, but they were like, well, have you ever sold it out of your house? And he's like, well, yeah, one time a friend came over and bought some heroin from me. Like we split it and whatever. And they seized the family's house.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, fuck you.
Right.
I don't even know how that works with like the bank, where the bank's like, well, you still owe us this big mortgage. Because I'm imagining
you still owe it, right? You don't get out of your loan because somebody took your house.
Right. And you're just, that's bad. I mean, I don't know, 1,000 houses. Well, let's talk about like, I don't know. Did you have any cases that struck you or?
No. Well, you know what? First off, let me start by reading the Fifth Amendment, because there's a lot of info in there. Now, there's a couple of things here that don't apply, and there's some that do. So just keep your ears open. No person should be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when an actual time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject to the same offense twice, put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, the important part there is the nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law.
There you go.
Think that seems like pretty straightforward. Like, that seems pretty fucking obvious what that means. So what's happening is people are having their money taken, their property seized without due process. So now there are a couple incidents. One that I was just reading about, where they went in, they were serving a civil warrant. The guy wasn't home, so they told him to come back a couple hours later.
Sure.
All right, but the police officer thought he smelled marijuana when he was at the door.
Who doesn't smell marijuana?
I mean, I have been pulled over multiple times and had the officer tell me that they smelled marijuana or alcohol. So,
Kevin, is that because you smell like marijuana and alcohol?
I actually have marijuana cologne that I wear out sometimes.
They confuse the patchouli with the with marijuana.
I've never had my car
impounded.
I've never had anyone accuse me of those things and then find out it was true. I've had people search my car because they thought they smelled marijuana, and then they didn't smell any. It turns out there's no marijuana at all. But you can just say you think whatever you want, and that's fine.
Right, but I didn't hear you say there wasn't marijuana in the car.
No, what I said was they never found marijuana in my car.
You didn't say that.
Yeah.
All right.
So regardless, they smelled marijuana. They claimed to have smelled marijuana. And when the police came back, they threw a flashbang through the window
of your
car. They didn't like come and knock on the door and be like, hey, they told us to come back a couple hours. Here's your paperwork. No, they threw a flashbang arrested both people, searched their house, seized money. They seized a wedding ring and a coin collection.
I bet you that wedding ring was used in the commission of a crime.
Right. They never found any marijuana.
Well, yeah.
But those people never got their stuff back. That wedding ring, that coin collection, that's gone. No. That's gone. They get to keep that. Yeah. So they were never convicted of anything. They were never found guilty of anything, but they still lost their property.
Yeah. There's a Marine, Stephen Lara, and this is a lot of money, and I don't really understand it, but I understand that it turns out it's none of my fucking business, right? Mm-hmm. Fifth Amendment says you're secure in your shit, right? Well, this guy was driving up to California, again, through Nevada, from like Texas, California. And, I understand they kind of touch each other and you don't have to go through Nevada, but he made the mistake of driving through Nevada. And he said that he didn't trust banks. Reasonable. I don't trust banks. He had his life savings, and it was $87,000. Now, they didn't charge him with anything. They didn't give him a traffic ticket, nothing. Oh, that's a lot of money. And they just took it and like, fuck you. Like, you know, and he's like, no. And they were like, no, fuck you. Or I got another one, right? All right. This is out of the Washington Post. Guy in Michigan, again, driving from Michigan to San Francisco, made the mistake driving through Nevada. And he gets pulled over with the huge sum of $2,400. Because, come on. And they were like, obviously, you are going to go buy drugs.
Right.
And he's like,
in San Francisco,
from Michigan, because there's no drugs in Michigan, right? Because like Chicago, Dry County and shit, right? Like, you know, it's like you're practically leaving Amish town when you leave, you know, Chicago. And he had to go, and they were like, you know, that's obvious. And he's like, no, this is just like all my money. And, you know, you're doing a road trip. You don't know what's going to come up. I take cash when I go on things. They actually said that since 9/11, which I think that was one of where we started taking a lot more shit.
Right.
Like after 9/11, all of a sudden the cops felt entitled to, you know, steal shit more. 61,998 people have had their shit taken, but wait, without ever being convicted of any crime at all. That's insane. The feds have seized in the last 5 years, just since 2020. Since 2020, the feds have seized over $50 billion, and the states have seized over $9 billion. So there is something called the Fifth Amendment Restoration Act that we were trying to get past. That was one of these Rand Paul kind of things, you know, because he's that crazy right-wing kook. He is kind of crazy. And that whole get beat up by your neighbor thing, there was some weirdness going on there. But just the same, that was a legit thing that I think would have actually helped us if we could pan that out. It's just a mess out there, Kevin. They're just taking shit. They don't care. The government basically free for all. That's all I'm saying. You smoke the marijuana and they're coming for your shit. But even if you don't smoke the marijuana, you know, oh, you look like, I don't know. It just doesn't add up.
Yeah.
And
well,
you know,
a little,
yeah.
Police can say that they smell anything they want.
Yeah.
And they can also get the dog out there to search. And the trick with the dog, though, is the dog always alerts.
What?
So when the dog comes out there and they say, well, we'll see if the dog smells it. Well, the dog does smell it because that's what they're supposed to do. So they sniff around and they realize it's not there. And then they just alert anyway because, you know, that's what their handler wants them to do. So then they can search your car and rummage through all your stuff, even though they just made it up. So, you know, it's good news for you.
Good news for you. Yeah. Now, there are some states that are like, hey, this is unreasonable. We're not going to allow this shit. So we have Maine, Nebraska, North Carolina, and New Mexico. Right. You're thinking, well, Chuck, there's 50 states and you only named 4. Yeah. Well, not a lot of people have your back. But don't worry. Those states can still get theirs because if they seize your property and the federal government comes over and takes it, that's legit. Just the state can't.
Right.
And then the federal government says, hey, good, fine. Kevin, I can't even imagine what kind of world where this makes sense. That's the whole problem.
Yeah. Well, good news. It made it up to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Supreme Court says it's fine.
Oh, well.
I guess the judges on the Supreme Court haven't gone through the Bill of Rights. They're not really.
Amendments are hard, stuff. Kevin. I mean, it's not in the main document. You got to flip back to that other page.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be tricky. It can can be tricky.
A lot of words, and they wrote it in cursive. So, I mean, how are you going to even figure that shit out?
Now, Brett Kavanaugh said that in his ruling, he said that you do have to have a trial, but you have to prove your innocence. They don't have to prove the guilt.
Right.
So, and also, you don't get to keep that stuff in between. You know what I mean? Like, if they seize your money, you don't get it back until after you can prove that you got it legally.
And obviously, if you had it out, you were like making a move, right? Something was happening. I mean, this is going to cost you, you know.
Right. You need to hire a lawyer. You're going to have to find that money somewhere else.
Yeah. No, it's just a mess. And the thing is, so one of the things, like they say, it's a tax on poor people. One of the things a lot of the people were experiencing was, and I actually saw a cop saying this. He's like, well, what we do is we say, thing is, we're going to take this. And right now we're not charging you with anything. But if you appeal this, we're going to send you a letter and, stating this. And if you appeal it and try and come back, we're going to charge you with money laundering. Because why do you have that cash?
Right.
And then for sure you are going to be convicted of something. So I'd recommend not saying anything. And then people are like, oh shit, I don't want any trouble. And is it worth $8,000 and lawyers? And you talk to a lawyer and they're like, yeah, that shit's gone. Just let it go.
You're not getting that back.
You're not getting that back. So that's where it becomes a dangerous road. And they're down for this. I mean, they're just taking shit. I mean, shit, look at Katrina when they took everybody's guns and they're like, oh, you don't have the receipt from when you bought this gun? And then people are like, but my house washed away. Like, it's not even there. Like, it was in the gun safe, but I don't know where the gun safe is.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, but you took my gun. Look, I signed right here. And no, fuck you. That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah. So, I mean, hypothetically, this is a free country and you've got rights.
Like in a movie. Yeah.
Right. And you have rights, but, I mean, it doesn't really count. Unless you're rich, it doesn't really work for you. They did get a state representative.
Okay.
What was that? I read it and I don't remember it, but they got a state representative and it was a big deal. And he ended up getting his money back.
Wow.
But it cost him over $100,000 to get the $240,000, whatever it was. He paid a good portion of that just in lawyer fees just to get his own property back.
Well, and who doesn't keep a lot of cash in foil in your freezer too? I mean,
that is a big thing. And honestly, I don't know what his deal was, but it's all good. They say it's life's a shit sandwich, but the more bread you have, the less shit you got to eat.
Is that right? You just kind of spread it out.
That's how it works.
Dude, that's I think what it always comes down to. Every episode I feel like I end with be self-sufficient. Don't go anywhere. Just stay on your land, hunting, fishing, loving every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just build a compound and don't go anywhere because fuck the police. I mean, yeah.
Yep. Shit. So when it comes to civil asset forfeiture, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. I recommend getting a law degree. Spend all your money on a law degree rather than carrying it around on your person. Don't carry it in your vehicle. I mean, you say stay in your house and don't go anywhere, but that person that where the police smelled marijuana, they didn't go anywhere either, and they still had their shit.
I mean, if you're in Philadelphia, they might just drop a bomb on your house. I mean, whatever.
Yeah. I didn't know that, but apparently you can just bomb houses with kids and shit in it too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Whatever. It's not like we got a helicopter, we got these really big bombs we have nothing to do with.
Yeah. It's cool.
Do you think like it was like a guy holding it and he's like, I'm gonna push it out? Like I don't even know how that works.
Yeah, no, I never got clear on that where that bomb came from, but I mean they did have it and they used it. So
yeah, it's a mess. But it really comes down to just protect your, I guess voting has consequences, right? It really matters what you know, who you interact with, who you hang out with. You know, I mean, a lot of it is perception and what they think they can get away with, but you never know when you're going to come across the guy who's like, you know, full on crazy and ready to take your stuff. There's always psychos out there.
Yeah.
And some of them work for the government. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to like beat the shit out of people, if that's like your fucking hobby, you're going to end up in prison.
Or
unless you get a job in law enforcement, and then it's cool.
Kevin, there are good cops out there. I have friends who are
There are a couple of bad apples.
And they spoil the bunch,
right?
Yeah.
So if you're a police officer and one of the people that you work with is a shitbag and you don't do anything about it, you're also a shitbag. That's my opinion.
Kevin, you're mean. Mean, Kevin, mean.
Yeah. If you ever want to get advanced in law enforcement, though,
okay,
don't ever like get involved in internal affairs or anything like that.
Or snitching.
No. Yeah, don't investigate law enforcement because you're done. Your career
I think
over.
this guy's corrupt. Hey, look at him harassing people. It never ends well on the TV shows. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
When you say, hey, my buddy's doing something bad, that doesn't ever end well. I don't know, Kevin. It's an ugly world out there. But that's the thing. I just worry because right now the spending is so out of control in Washington. And,
$7 trillion a year.
Obviously, in your mind, you're like, oh, well, now we have a new president. Everything's going to be fine. Well, it turns out Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are both saying they have so many houses in foreclosure that it's like worse than 2008. Like that bomb's about to drop. It's really not good. People are having a tough time with money. And the government is like, well, the only way we know how to get more money is to tax the shit out of you. And, and I know you're like, well, we're going to have Republicans and maybe they'll just print the money instead of just taking it from me.
No. It's debt called deficit spending. You just spend the money. You don't have to have the money. Because that's somebody else's problem now. You know what I mean? You don't have to pay it back. Your kids have to pay back the national debt. That's their problem. You know what I mean? We can spend the money now and fuck those kids. You know what I mean?
And so that's the thing is there's just so much money being created through deficit spending, through printing, whatever. And we're just insane, right? So we don't have anything good going on there. I don't know. I just got distracted. Sorry. Mm-hmm. The deal is there's so much money being created and inflation is out of control. And then the government gets desperate. Like that's one of the things I was just talking about. People were like, oh, well, why would you be opposed to them doing sex changes in the prison? And I'm like, because we can't afford to even keep the criminals in the prison, let alone offer all these extra benefits. We don't have the money. The same thing with, people coming across the border who hadn't, we didn't have the infrastructure. We can't afford it. And that's where the problem runs in. It's not a matter of being nice. What happens is when you spend all the money, you have nothing left. And then we're just kind of screwed. And then all of a sudden we have to start letting people out of prison who are less than desirable because we can't afford to keep them there. Or maybe we need to start, cutting benefits to people. God forbid, right? If we start cutting benefits to people, people get angry. It's always been this way. You give me money, they get angry. Mm-hmm. And now we have all these criminals. We have all these angry people. And the government's like, oh, shit, we need more money. Well, asset forfeiture is one of the things they do to, hey, let's bring some money back in. We can just start stealing it from people. And look, there's all these crimes going on. Look, there's a car. It was stolen because we arrested the guy who stole it. So clearly it was a stolen car. We should seize it. Right. Now, I don't know if it's quite that bad, but I feel like we're close to that. things are getting a little hairy out there, Kevin. You probably didn't notice, but it's a little scary out there.
Yeah, people are a little wild, man. It's been going on for a while. Things are ramping up. I mean, be honest with you, I've been getting ready for this for years. So I mean, we'll see what happens. Shit's gonna get a little wild. I mean, if you're not prepping, if you're not prepared to be out of work for a while or to have a massive debt thrown on you that you had no idea was coming, I recommend stocking up now.
Yeah. That's the whole thing is I don't know which way they're going to hammer you with, trauma, but it's coming. Oh, the Republicans won, so everything's good. But I'm telling you, we're in a pretty big mess right now. And it doesn't matter who's steering the ship. When the iceberg's right in front of you, it gets a little scary out there.
Yeah, and if you're making less than $400,000 a year, your taxes are going up. You know what I mean? They went up last year. They're going up again next year. They went up this year.
If nothing else, your property taxes, or you're being taxed through inflation. How many times have we heard that, And that's true. I mean, that's what happens is inflation, it keeps getting higher and we just, keep paying. And
now, if you're planning on making purchases that are going to save you money now, versus expenses, in future expenses, you want to focus on electronics. That's the stuff that's going to.
That's the future.
That's going to shoot through the roof. The prices of electronics. So buy your new iPhone now.
Yeah,
this might be your last chance to afford one. After that, it's only going to be leasing things from those companies. You know what I mean? You never own anything. You're going to not own anything and be happy about it, I mean, it already is the case that your iPhone, you don't really own that shit. You know what I mean? You can use it. They let you use it. But all the information that you use on that is accessible to, I don't know, corporations, government, anybody that's interested in looking into it. So.
Oh, man, my bank just put a new app. You needed a new app to use the online banking or something. And it was like 50 pages, the user agreement. And I'm like, really? Like some of them are like obvious, you're like, oh, yeah, there's like 5 sections. It's a page. This thing was just scrolling. And I'm like, oh, my God. Like, you really intend. And what are you going to do? Well, I'm not going to bank anymore. Like, it just.
Right. And I'm sure in there somewhere,
they were
100 different ways to fuck you over.
Yeah, we lose all your money, your problem. Government wants to take your money and we're cool with it. Yep, your problem. It's whatever. It just, I don't know. That is out of control. But anyway, we'd appreciate if you guys like and subscribe. You have questions, concerns, email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. Otherwise, I appreciate you sticking around and checking us out. Show ideas, again, let us know. With that, I would say stay safe, and we will talk to you guys next week.